Welcome back to the Deconstructed Universe. That's right, we're back with episode 5, titled The Regent of House of the Dragon Season 2. Now, this episode is very on par with previous episodes to come in terms of pacing and the way that it's constructed. Now, this is not at all a nitpick against, the way that the story is being told, but we are left with 3 more episodes of this season, and this season has been slow paced. Now, this is just indicative of the way that the story is told and the way that the story has been constructed, because it is mainly political in theme. So obviously the major decisions are made around a table for both the black and the green faction. So I know, like last episode, it was very much on pace with battle, and we got dragon battle, we got armies, and it was very gripping because we lost Rhaenys. But in this episode, it's very subdued. It's kind of the aftermath of, the Battle of Rook's Rest. And as the audience, we're instantly thrown into the political scheming and chasm of what's going on after said battle. Now, we are going to break this down and just go by character in the episode, that go over their arcs and what exactly is happening within this episode. Now, as we can see, we're going to kick it off straight away with Rhaenyra. She is feeling a bit powerless despite her being queen for the black faction. She feels that her council do not respect her. She feels that they're overstepping their bounds, and she feels that she's not doing enough to protect her claim and her family. She feels like she's basically sitting on her hands. Now, I have to agree, she is sitting on her hands, but she's having a hard time of inspiring a great deal of respect from her council. This, I think, is more of a character trait for Rhaenyra, because I know it's not good to compare Daenerys Targaryen, the last Targaryen queen. She never had this trouble. She never had this trouble when it came to her council or her men. She always was, at the forefront of, battles. Even though she couldn't fight, she was always on a dragon. And she always inspired a great deal of respect and admiration from the men around her. And she had to fight for everything that she ever had, She had to fight for the armies, she had to fight for the respect, she had to fight for the Iron Throne, which she did get in the end, and then she was robbed of. But in the terms of the way Daenerys' story arc is constructed and the way that her character is constructed, and then we compare it to Rhaenyra, who's struggling to basically just invoke a great deal of respect and loyalty from her council. It comes down to character traits in this case. Rhaenyra is not the same character as Daenerys, but at the same time she's not inspiring the same kind of loyalty and respect from the men around her, and that says a lot about that character. Now, the way that I perceive Rhaenyra is that she's a bit of a spoiled princess. She's basically going on about, like, she's the rightful queen, because she is, okay, like, she was named. Both sides, I've said it before, have legal right and reason to stand in whatever that they're saying that they're king and queen, because they do have legal right, and they're both legally right. At this point in time, it's just going to have to be fought out, because Viserys wasn't, a good king, and he basically left his family in disarray and his kingdom in disarray. So Rhaenyra, in that sense, she's not invoking that sense of loyalty and respect from her men the way that Daenerys did. And I just think that's just because Rhaenyra is a different character, and not only that, maybe later on in the story arc she will. But at this point in time, people are just following Rhaenyra because they swore an oath, and they just swore an oath, and they're, looking to fight. As in terms of the Riverlands, we see how the Brackens and the Blackwoods are fighting there. Now, we see it's kind of the same thing with Jacaerys. He basically takes initiatives, goes in negotiates with the Freys. He promises things that he basically, we'll see how that turns out, but we'll see how that turns out in terms of what he promised, because he was bargaining and promising things that he really couldn't, but we'll see how that works out for him. So we see that Bela is torn up. She's very much grieving, and she goes to Corlys. Corlys is grieving, and this man has the audacity to go to his granddaughter and be like, I'll make you heir to the Driftwood throne. And she's like, I'm fire and blood, you need salt and sea. And it's like, it takes Rhaenys to basically pass away for you to do what she was begging you to do since the first season of House of the Dragon, when Rhaenyra turned up with her strong sons. So we see all of that. On terms of the black side, we also see that Daemon is still on those First Men psychedelics, because he's still having visions, and he's interacting with the weirwood tree and all the magic that's going on in Alyssa Rivers. And we also see how he's kind of dealing with the strife within the Riverlands and how he's trying and failing to raise an army. We see that the Blackwoods and the Brackens have been fighting for a long time. We see that he basically backs the Blackwoods and is like, you know what, there are things that the crown cannot be seen to do. So he gave the green light for them to basically commit war crimes on the Brackens. And that later on comes back and bites him in the arse, because the lords of the Riverlands rock up to Harrenhal and they're like, we are not, I repeat, we are not going to fight for the tyrant, especially one that sends assassins for a babe in his mother's arms. And he's like, who said that? Bring me the person who said that. And he's like, half the kingdom said that. And I just thought that was just really badass, because it just shows how Daemon is not really equipped to rule. And we also saw how he had this vision that is very indicative of his psyche at this moment, and the psychology going through his mind and his mental state, because I thought it was Rhaenyra, but no, it was Alyssa Targaryen. Alyssa Targaryen. It was Alyssa Targaryen, his mother, who he basically was envisioning when he was like having that scene, which honestly, after I kind of clocked what was going on, I was just like, oh, this is gross. House of the Dragon has literally, generally in the Targaryen family, it's just, it's not a secret that they marry within themselves, but come on, your mother, Daemon, your mother. But I think that just goes back to show that, it was always mentioned and foreshadowed that Alyssa was Daemon's mother, and she was his favorite, he was her favorite. She was basically the mother that he never got to know and died young. And it's even said to Viserys even says it, like, he was our mother's favorite, like he was spoilt. And without that maternal side in Daemon, I think he feels very much vulnerable, and this scene was there to display that to the audience, like how he feels vulnerable, how he's longing for his mother who always believed in him, and how he's yearning, and how he's basically driven and fantasizing about the Iron Throne. So he sees the Iron Throne as this thing that is owed to him, that he should have had, and that his brother was incapable of having, and he never was really a good king, which is true. Viserys was a weak king. So we see that scene. I don't know what anybody else thought about that, but as storytellers, I think that was a great way of showing his mental state and how he's longing for somebody to believe in him, and how he's also longing for the Iron Throne. Because we also see that he had a scene with Alyssa Rivers where she was like, you know what, like, it's a shame you don't know your mother, and can't you just be a bit better about, getting men to fight for you, because you are basically being a tyrant. And he was like, you know what, I'll treat people better when they fight for me, when they're on my side. Until then, I'll treat them like my enemy. So we see that Daemon is not a great ruler in that sense. He's not one to inspire loyalty through respect. He's one to inspire loyalty through fear, and that is even shoddy loyalty there. So that is done, and then when we flip over to the Green Council, we see that Alicent is surprised that the patriarchal society that she's in has turned against her. She is torn. We see that she's actually being a mother. She's worried about her son. We see that Aemond is very much calculating. He's not somebody who says a lot of words. He's not a man of many words. He is a man of action. The way he speaks, the way he moves, the way that he carries himself speaks volumes for him. So we see that Aemond is basically like, we're gonna need a regent, because they returned Aegon back from the battlefield in a box, charred in a box covered with rags. And we see the procession through King's Landing, the Red Keep, and it's very much somber. And we see Helena, she's just kind of like, oh my gosh, things are just getting out of control here. And you know what? At this point in time, Helena is the only one who is basically like has a head on her shoulder that is like using common sense. Everybody else is just fire and blood. Everything is just going crazy. So we see that this episode, Alicent basically spends it, worrying about Aegon and also fighting for some semblance of power. And I think this is the episode where she realized that she had more power under Viserys' rule, and she had more power when her father was there. Because at this point in time, she has no allies on the council except the Grand Maester. I mean, the Grand Maester really stuck up for Alicent and was like, you know what? Alicent has done it before, and everybody was like, nah, it needs to be a man because we'll be contradicting ourselves. And Aemond is the next in line as the king's, next heir. So we see that Alicent is just basically shaken and she's like on her own. She even like falls back onto Larys and she's like, Larys, what do you think? Because you've always been on my side. And it's like, honey, have you forgotten that you've basically kicked Larys to the side in favor of Criston Cole? And she has this conversation with Criston Cole where he's like, what happened on the battlefield? And he was like, the king fought valiantly. And she's like, you know what Aemond is? And she's like, okay, Alicent, you've said this many times, but it's like, isn't it time for you to just basically be like, you know what, you weren't a great mother to your children? Because Aemond is only the way that he is in part because of you, okay, and the environment that he was raised in. But then we can't really blame Alicent because she never really had a good motherly figure force behind her, nurturing her, and the only person that's ever been her parent has always used her to attain his political goals, which is her father Otto. So we see that she gets really pissed off with Criston Cole and is like, you should have backed me, and he's like, you know what, we've given the war to the dragons. And I just don't understand how like Alicent and Criston decide to be idiots, because it's like they know a war with the dragons is going to be one of fire and blood. And also the fact that Alicent let the opposite faction's queen go. She had Rhaenyra Targaryen in her sights and she let her go. Okay, she let her go. And she knows that Rhaenyra found her way into the city. She knows that assassins have found her way into the city and the Red Keep. And she has done nothing to mitigate basically insulating and protecting her family at all. Like, she hasn't even told anybody, like, she hasn't even gone to Larys and been like, listen, Rhaenyra came into King's Landing, we need to lock it down, because clearly the Blacks have a way into King's Landing and they have a way into the Red Keep. What is going on? We need to check out the City Watch, we need to check out the Golden Cloaks. We need to do something, because our enemy can literally just walk up into this city anytime they want. She hasn't done any of that and she wants to lead. I just don't understand it. Like, girl, this is war and you're still holding on to sentimentalities. And it's like, in this case, Alicent, if you were going to be like this, you might as just bent the knee to Rhaenyra Targaryen and been like, you know what, be queen. because you're not really doing anything to protect your family or your children, and you're not doing anything to be ruthless to protect your children. You're not. You're just playing at power and queen. And it's just annoying. It's annoying. It's asinine. And I just can't believe that Alicent went from this girl that I had some sympathy for and I was kind of rooting for her to this woman that is just basically a contradiction and doesn't know how to rule and be ruthless. If that was Cersei Lannister, okay? If that was Cersei Lannister and Rhaenyra had rocked up in King's Landing, or like the assassin had happened in her own house, do you know Cersei would have literally snatched up Rhaenyra as soon as Rhaenyra showed her face in King's Landing? Do you know Cersei Lannister would have sent assassins of her own? And we're saying like this is the woman that wants to be regent for her son in times of war when she can't make the hard decisions. Oh, just whatever, Alicent, whatever. We see that basically Criston Cole makes the executive decision to parade Maelyse's head through King's Landing, and he doesn't get the reaction he wanted from the small folk. And Gwaine is like, was it even a successful battle? And it's like, no, Criston Cole, that was terrible. And I don't entirely think Otto is Tywin Lannister. I know Tywin Lannister loved Otto, but Otto is no like strategic mastermind or anything like that. He's just grasping at the end of the day, and he has made some great political moves. He's been hand to 3 kings. Bottom line is, Otto Hightower would have told them not to do that, because, okay, here is a dynasty that has stood for 100 years, that has never been to war, and that is viewed as, otherworldly and above common folk, and now you're parading a fallen dragon through the streets. They're seeing it as a bad omen that's going to be used by the Black faction in the next episode. So we also see that, obviously, Otto Hightower was the Olivia Pope of the Green faction, and let's face it, they need some political PR. They need good political PR, because at this point in time, they're still writing off Otto's other PR where, he basically let the whole world know that the Black faction sent assassins for children, which they did. So that was the entirety of the episode. Now, the way that I perceive this season going forward, I don't know how it's going to end. It has been a bit slow. This is a C because it was just, more politics, but the bottom line is it's being very slow, and I think it's just being that because they want to obviously move these story arcs along, and they want to make them into I think 6 or 7 seasons, I don't know. But bottom line is, I don't know how long they can stretch the Dance of Dragons out for, but the bottom line is we need to start picking up now. We need to start picking up, and there's only so much this war can be sent out. So what did you all think? Comment in the comment section below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you very much for making it to the end. Make sure you check out Vertigo Honor Bound by Blood, the first installment in the Vertigo book series. It is set in 2095 at the heart of the Imperial Champion regime, where Emperor Gregory Champion rules over Earth and the colonies stretching out across the solar system, where there is a virus called the Megavirus that has mutated and changed the political landscape of Earth. This is a story about factions, about coming of age, about the importance of being firm in what you believe in a world where bloodlines matter. What faction are you?